cleaner brought her disabled daughter to work. And what the millionaire did shocked everyone. Jessica Parker was in tears as she held her 3-year-old daughter in her arms. The babysitter had cancelled at the last minute, and she couldn't miss work at the Richardson mansion. Her little Emma hadn't spoken a single word since birth, wrapped in a silence that doctors couldn't explain. Then she found herself in front of the imposing gate of the residence, knowing she was about to break her employer's strictest rule. Businessman Thomas Richardson was known for his coldness and intolerance, especially when it came to children on his property. "Please, Jessica, you know he doesn't like this," whispered Margaret, the housekeeper, as she saw her come in through the back door with the girl in her arms. "Mrs. Wilson cancelled at the last minute. I had no one else to leave Emma with," replied Jessica, adjusting her daughter's little red dress. "She'll stay quiet, I promise." Margaret shook her head worriedly. At 62, she knew her boss's temperament well. She had worked in the house for over 15 years and knew this situation could cost Jessica her job. The Richardson home was a modern palace in the most upscale neighborhood of New York City. Every room breathed luxury and perfection, from the imported marble to the paintings by renowned artists. Jessica always felt small inside, but she needed that job. She was a single mother and supported not only her daughter but also her own mother, Mrs. Brown, who lived in a modest little house on the outskirts. "Where are you going to leave her while you work?" asked Margaret, watching little Emma, who held a worn-out cloth doll. "I thought of leaving her in the pantry. She doesn't make any noise anyway, and I'll bring some toys to keep her busy." The housekeeper sighed. She knew Jessica's difficult situation, knew the young woman had been struggling alone ever since the girl's father abandoned them when he found out about the child's condition. Thomas Richardson usually arrived at work at 9 in the morning, and they would have at least 2 hours to organize everything. "All right, but if he shows up early, you grab the girl and leave through the back door immediately," instructed Margaret. Jessica nodded gratefully and headed to the kitchen with Emma in her arms. The girl observed everything around her with curious brown eyes, but remained silent. She didn't cry, didn't complain, just existed in her own private, quiet world. The cleaning routine began as usual. Jessica set up a little corner in the pantry with some toys and a blanket, where Emma settled in calmly. The girl had the habit of spending hours playing alone, creating silent stories with her little dolls. It was 8:30 when Jessica heard the sound of the key in the front door. Her heart raced. Thomas never arrived so early. "Margaret!" shouted the man's deep voice. "Where is everyone?" Jessica dropped the cleaning cloth and ran toward the pantry, but when she got there, she found only the scattered toys. Emma had disappeared. Panic took over her. She ran through the halls of the house, desperately searching for her daughter, while she heard the heavy footsteps of Thomas Richardson approaching the kitchen. "What the devil is this?" thundered the businessman's voice. Jessica turned the corner and saw the scene that made her tremble. Emma was in Thomas's private office, sitting on the marble floor with important papers scattered around and an old photograph in her little hands. Thomas Richardson stopped at the door watching the child. He was an imposing man, around 40 years old, always dressed in impeccable suits. His dark eyes usually intimidated anyone, but at that moment they were fixed on the girl holding the photograph. "Mr. Thomas, I can explain," began Jessica, entering the office on trembling legs. But something strange was happening. The businessman wasn't shouting, wasn't throwing the child out. He was just looking at Emma, who in turn was observing the photo with a serene expression. The photo showed a blonde girl of about 5 years old, smiling while holding a cloth doll very similar to the one Emma always carried. "How did she get in here?" asked Thomas, but his voice lacked its usual sharpness. She must have slipped out of the pantry when I wasn't looking. Sir, please don't fire me. I need this job," begged Jessica. Margaret appeared in the doorway, pale with worry. "Jessica, you should have been more careful." "She doesn't speak?" asked Thomas, ignoring the other 2 women and slowly crouching down in front of Emma. "No, sir. Not since she was born. The doctors say there's nothing physically wrong, but she's never said a word," explained Jessica, ready to grab her daughter and run. Thomas carefully reached his hand toward the photo. Emma looked at him and, surprisingly, handed over the picture without resistance. It was as if she understood it was important to him. "Is that your daughter?" asked Jessica, noticing the change in the man's expression. Thomas didn't answer immediately. He kept looking at the photo and then looked at Emma, who had gone back to playing with her doll, completely oblivious to the tension in the room. "She was," he said finally, and Jessica noticed there were tears in the businessman's eyes. Margaret held her breath. In 15 years working in the house, she had never seen Thomas show any emotion other than coldness or irritation. "What happened to her?" asked Jessica softly. "She passed away 5 years ago," replied Thomas, putting the photo away in a drawer. "She was the same age as your daughter when she left." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, continuing. The silence that followed was heavy. Jessica didn't know what to say, and Margaret remained motionless in the doorway. Emma kept playing, unaware of the drama unfolding around her. She didn't speak either. Jessica wanted to know. Thomas nodded slowly. "Lily had the same problem. We went from doctor to doctor trying to find a solution. My wife became obsessed with it and I buried myself in work to avoid dealing with the situation." "And now, your wife?" "Catherine lives here, but it's as if we're strangers. Since we lost Lily, our house has become a mausoleum," said Thomas, standing up. "She can't even bear to hear about children." Jessica felt her heart tighten. She recognized that man's pain because she was a mother and knew how devastating it would be to lose a child. "Sir, I'll leave now. I don't want to cause any more problems," she said, moving toward Emma. "Wait," said Thomas, surprising everyone. "What's her name?" "Emma." Thomas crouched down again and observed the girl. "Hi, Emma." The girl looked up and stared at him. For a moment, it seemed like she was going to respond, but she remained silent. However, she gave a small smile, the first one Jessica had seen in weeks. "She likes you," observed Jessica, surprised. May I pick her up?" asked Thomas hesitantly. Jessica hesitated, but something in the man's expression convinced her to agree. Thomas lifted Emma carefully, as if she were made of crystal. The girl settled into his arms without resistance, still holding her little doll. "Lily had a doll just like this one," commented Thomas, his voice choked. "Emma got it from my mother when she was born. It's her favorite toy," explained Jessica. Margaret watched the scene with disbelief. She never imagined she would see Thomas Richardson being kind to a child, especially after the tragedy that had turned that house into a cold and lifeless place. "You can keep working," Thomas finally said, "but I want you to bring Emma whenever you have nowhere to leave her." "Sir," Jessica couldn't believe what she was hearing. Just don't tell my wife for now, okay? Catherine isn't ready for this yet." Jessica nodded vigorously. She needed that job, and if it meant she could bring Emma when necessary, it was more than she could have dreamed of. "Thank you, Mr. Thomas, you won't regret it." Thomas handed Emma back to her mother, but the little girl stretched her tiny hands toward him as if she wanted to stay longer in the man's lap. "She never does this with strangers," murmured Jessica, watching her daughter's behavior. "Perhaps she senses that I understand her silence," said Thomas, gently touching Emma's little face. "Sometimes words are unnecessary." Margaret finally managed to speak. "Mr. Thomas, Mrs. Catherine cannot find out about this. If she finds out—" "I know, Margaret. Let's keep this between us, at least for now." Jessica took Emma back to the pantry, but now with a completely different feeling. The man she had so feared had shown a human side that no one knew. For the rest of the morning, she worked with a lighter heart. Emma remained quiet in the pantry, playing with her dolls and occasionally looking toward the door as if expecting the man in the suit to appear again. Around 10 o'clock, Jessica heard voices coming from the main hall. She immediately recognized the sharp voice of Catherine Richardson, Thomas's wife. She was an elegant 45-year-old woman who rarely spoke to the staff. "Margaret, where is that smell of children's perfume?" shouted Catherine. Jessica felt her blood run cold. She ran to the pantry and picked up Emma, whispering for her to be even quieter. "There's no smell, Mrs. Catherine," Margaret replied diplomatically. "Don't tell me I don't smell it. There's a baby smell in this house, and I want to know where it's coming from." Hurried footsteps echoed down the hallway, and Jessica knew Catherine was searching for the source of what she had detected. The woman had a keen sense for anything that reminded her of children, and she always became upset when it happened. "Jessica," called Margaret, "come here a moment." Jessica swallowed hard and left the pantry without Emma, carefully closing the door behind her. "Yes, Mrs. Margaret." "Mrs. Catherine wants to speak with you." In the main hall, Catherine Richardson's face was red with irritation. She wore an expensive dress and her blonde hair was perfectly styled, but her blue eyes showed a coldness that made Jessica tremble. "Did you change your perfume?" Catherine asked directly. "No, ma'am. I've used the same one for years." "Then why does this house smell like a child?" Jessica tried to maintain her composure. "I don't know, ma'am. Maybe it's some new cleaning product that Margaret bought." Catherine studied her suspiciously. "Are you sure there's nothing you want to tell me?" "Quite sure, ma'am." At that moment, Thomas came down the stairs, adjusting his tie. "Good morning, Catherine. Any problem?" "This house has a strange smell, and I want to know why," said Catherine, without taking her eyes off Jessica. "It must be some cleaning product. Jessica is an exemplary employee, Catherine. There's no reason to suspect her," defended Thomas. Jessica was surprised by her employer's defense, but noticed that Catherine became even more suspicious of her husband's attitude. "Since when do you defend employees?" asked Catherine. "Since always. I want competent people working here, and Jessica is one of them." A muffled cry came from the direction of the pantry. Jessica felt her world collapse. Emma was waking up and probably missing her mother. Catherine turned her head immediately toward the sound. "What was that?" "Must be a neighbor's cat," said Margaret quickly. But Catherine wasn't foolish. She marched toward the pantry, followed by everyone else. When she opened the door, she found Emma sitting among the cleaning supplies, crying softly while hugging her doll. The silence that followed was deafening. Catherine stood frozen in the doorway, looking at the child as if she were seeing a ghost. "What is this?" she asked with a trembling voice. "Catherine," began Thomas. "I asked what this is," shouted Catherine, making Emma cry louder. Jessica entered the pantry and picked up her daughter, trying to calm her. "Ma'am, please don't shout. She is my daughter." "Your daughter? You brought a child into my house?" Catherine was beside herself. "The babysitter cancelled at the last minute, and I had nowhere to leave her," explained Jessica, rocking Emma gently. "Out! Get out of my house now!" screamed Catherine. "Catherine, calm down," said Thomas, touching his wife's arm. "Don't touch me." She pulled away violently. "You knew about this, didn't you? That's why you defended her." Emma cried louder and louder, frightened by the shouting. Jessica tried to calm her, but the situation was completely out of control. "Catherine, let's talk calmly," pleaded Thomas. "There's nothing to talk about. I don't allow children in this house, never again." "Why not?" asked Thomas, and his voice had a dangerous tone that Jessica had never heard. Catherine stopped shouting and looked at her husband with disbelief. "How can you ask me that?" "Why can't we have a child in the house, Catherine? Explain it to me." "Because our daughter is no longer here," shouted Catherine, with tears streaming down her face. "Our Lily is gone and I can't see other children without remembering her." The pain in Catherine's voice was palpable. Jessica felt her heart tighten for the woman, finally understanding the source of all that coldness. "I know you're in pain, Catherine. I am too," said Thomas softly. "But we can't live like ghosts forever." "You don't understand anything," Catherine sobbed. "You hid in your work ever since she left. I was the one who stayed here, in this house full of memories, trying to survive without her." Emma had stopped crying and was now watching Catherine with her big, curious eyes. There was something in the girl's expression that seemed to touch something deep within the woman. "Mrs. Catherine," said Jessica carefully, "I understand your pain. I'm a mother too, and I can't even imagine what it would be like to lose my daughter." Catherine looked at Jessica with red eyes. "Then why did you bring her here? Why did you make me relive all this?" "I didn't know. No one ever told me about your daughter. If I had known, I would never have brought Emma." "She doesn't speak?" asked Catherine, noticing that the child remained silent. "No. Since she was born. The doctors don't know why." Catherine approached slowly, as if hypnotized. Lily didn't speak either. "I know your husband told me." "He told you?" Catherine looked at Thomas with surprise. "Yes, I did. And you know why? Because this girl reminded me that we're still capable of feeling something beyond pain," said Thomas. Catherine kept watching Emma, who now stretched her little hands toward her. It was a simple gesture, but it touched something in the woman's heart that had been frozen for 5 years. "She wants to go to you," observed Jessica. "No, I can't." Catherine stepped back. "Why not?" insisted Thomas. "Why can't you hold a child?" "Because it hurts too much," shouted Catherine. "Because when I look at her I see our Lily, and it hurts so much I can't breathe." Emma began to stir on Jessica's lap, trying to get closer to Catherine. The little girl seemed to sense the woman's pain and wanted to offer some kind of comfort. "Just look," said Margaret softly. "She wants to console you." "Children sense these things," added Jessica. "Emma has always been very sensitive to sad people." Catherine stood still, fighting her own feelings. Part of her wanted to run away, as she always did when confronted with memories of Lily, but another part, a part that had been buried for years, wanted to reach out and hold that child. "I don't know if I can," whispered Catherine. "Try," encouraged Thomas, "just for a moment." With trembling hands, Catherine reached out. Jessica, sensing the woman's inner struggle, carefully placed Emma in Catherine's arms. The child settled immediately, as if she belonged there. Catherine remained still for a moment, feeling the small warm weight of the girl against her chest. "She's so tiny," whispered Catherine, and tears began to flow again. Emma raised a little hand and touched Catherine's wet face, as if wiping away her tears. The gesture was so tender that it broke down all the barriers Catherine had built. "Oh my God," sobbed Catherine, holding Emma tighter. "She looks just like Lily," Thomas completed, moving closer to his wife. Jessica watched the scene with emotion. She had never seen anyone react to Emma that way. The girl had something special, an ability to touch people's hearts in a unique way. "I can't do this," Catherine said suddenly, handing Emma back to Jessica. "I can't replace my daughter with another child." "No one is asking that," said Thomas, "but maybe we can learn to live again." "I need time," said Catherine, stepping away. "I need to think." She quickly left the pantry, leaving everyone in silence. Margaret shook her head sadly. 5 years have passed and she still hasn't been able to move on," commented the housekeeper. "It's hard to get over the loss of a child," said Jessica. "We can't judge her." "You're right," agreed Thomas, "but we also can't live trapped in the past forever." Emma had completely calmed down and was now playing with the buttons on Jessica's shirt. It was as if she understood that the moment of tension had passed. "Mr. Richardson, maybe it's best if I don't bring Emma anymore," suggested Jessica. "No, you can keep bringing her. We'll just be more careful so Catherine doesn't feel pressured." "How will we do that? She's always home." "Catherine has therapy on Tuesday and Thursday mornings," informed Margaret. "On those days, it's not a problem. And on the other days, we'll figure out a way," said Thomas determinedly. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing, the following days were tense at the Richardson mansion. Catherine avoided leaving her room, and when she did, she constantly asked if that child was in the house. Thomas tried to talk to her about it, but his wife completely shut down. Jessica only brought Emma on Tuesdays and Thursdays, as agreed. On those days, something interesting happened. Thomas began working from home more, making excuses to stay near the girl. "He's changed," Margaret commented to Jessica on a Thursday while they were preparing lunch. "I haven't seen him smile in years, but since Emma started coming here..." "He's very kind to her," agreed Jessica, watching through the window as Thomas played with Emma in the garden. The scene was touching. The businessman had taken off his jacket and was sitting on the grass, showing the girl the garden flowers. Emma pointed to each one, as if asking questions that only she could hear. "Lily loved this garden," commented Margaret. "Catherine had all the flowers removed after she passed. Thomas only replanted them last year." It must have been very hard for them, more than you can imagine. Lily was playing here in the garden when it happened. Catherine saw everything from the bedroom window. Jessica felt a tightness in her chest. Was she alone? No. She was with the nanny. But it was so quick. Within minutes, she fell ill and we couldn't save her. That's why Catherine is so traumatized by children. Exactly. She blames herself for not coming down right away. She thinks if she'd been closer, she could have done something. Jessica now understood Catherine's reaction better. As a mother, she knew the guilt would be devastating. At that moment, they heard Thomas's voice from the garden. "Emma, look at this butterfly." The two women approached the window and saw the little girl trying to touch an orange butterfly that had landed on a rose. Thomas held the child carefully, allowing her to approach the insect. "Lily loved butterflies too," whispered a voice behind them. Jessica and Margaret turned and saw Catherine standing at the kitchen entrance, watching the scene through the window. She had come down quietly and was now watching her husband playing with Emma. "Mrs. Catherine," Jessica began, but the woman gestured for her to be quiet. Catherine watched silently for several minutes. Emma had managed to lightly touch the butterfly before it flew away, and was now clapping her hands joyfully, even without making a sound. "She's very expressive, even without speaking," Catherine remarked softly. "It's true. Emma has always been that way. She communicates in other ways," explained Jessica. "Like Lily," Catherine sighed. "My daughter also had her own ways of communicating. Looks, gestures, smiles. She must have been a very special little girl." "She was. She was the light of our lives." Catherine wiped away a tear. "That's why it hurts so much to see them out there." "May I ask you a question?" Jessica said carefully. Catherine nodded. "Do you think Lily would want to see you so sad?" Catherine was silent for a long moment. "No. She always hated when we argued or were sad. She tried to comfort us in her own little way. Then perhaps she'd be happy to know you can find a little joy again." "But it feels like I'm betraying her memory," confessed Catherine. "Or like you're honoring her," suggested Margaret. "Lily always wanted to see you happy." At that moment, Emma looked toward the window and saw Catherine. The little girl waved her hand as if inviting the woman to join them in the garden. "She's calling you," observed Jessica. "I know, but I can't. Not yet." Catherine stepped away from the window, but didn't leave the kitchen. She stood there, wrestling with her inner demons. "How long is Emma staying today?" she asked. "Until 4. "Then I'll take her home," replied Jessica. "And tomorrow is Friday. She doesn't come." "No, ma'am, only Tuesdays and Thursdays." Catherine nodded and left the kitchen without another word. The afternoon ended quickly. Jessica was gathering Emma's things when Thomas entered the house with the little girl in his arms. "She tired herself out from playing so much," he said, smiling. Emma was drowsy, resting her head on Thomas's shoulder as if it were the most natural place in the world. "Thank you for watching her while I was working," said Jessica. "Thank you. It's been a long time since I've felt so light." Jessica noticed that Thomas hesitated to hand the child back. It was obvious he had formed an emotional bond with Emma in just a few weeks. "Mr. Thomas, may I ask you a personal question?" "Of course." "Why did you never try to have other children after Lily?" Thomas took a deep breath. Catherine didn't want to. "He said it would be like trying to replace our daughter, and I let myself be carried away by her pain and forgot my own need to be a father again. And now I remember how good it feels to care for a child, how rewarding it is to see a smile, teach simple things, share special moments." Emma had fallen completely asleep in Thomas's arms. The man looked at her with a tenderness Jessica had never seen before. "She brought something back inside me that I thought I'd lost forever," Thomas confessed. "What will happen now? With Mrs. Catherine? I don't know, but I can't keep living as if I'm dead inside. Lily wouldn't have wanted that." Jessica carefully picked up Emma, trying not to wake her. "Until Tuesday, then." Until Tuesday. But when Jessica arrived the following Tuesday, she found an unexpected situation. Catherine was in the kitchen talking with Margaret. "Good morning, Mrs. Catherine," greeted Jessica, surprised. "Good morning, Jessica," "Is this your daughter?" asked Catherine, looking at Emma. "Yes, ma'am, this is Emma. She can stay in the living room today. No need to hide in the pantry anymore." Jessica couldn't believe what she was hearing. "Are you sure, ma'am?" "I am, but on one condition. I want to talk with you about her." Jessica nodded, still processing Catherine's change of attitude. "Margaret, could you prepare a snack for the girl?" asked Catherine. "Of course, ma'am," replied the housekeeper, as surprised as Jessica. Catherine led Jessica and Emma to the living room, an elegant space with light leather sofas and a beautiful view of the garden. "Have a seat," said Catherine, pointing to the sofa. Jessica settled with Emma on her lap, still apprehensive. "You said she hasn't spoken since birth," Catherine began. "That's right, ma'am, and that the doctors don't know why. They ran many tests but found nothing physically wrong. They said it might be emotional, but I don't understand what a baby just a few months old could have gone through to traumatize her." Catherine grew thoughtful. Lily was like that too. The doctors never found a physical cause for her silence. "How did you handle it?" "At first, I was desperate. I thought it was my fault, that I'd done something wrong during the pregnancy. Thomas tried to comfort me, but he was worried too. Emma had become interested in a decorative vase and was trying to reach it. Catherine stood up and took the object, offering it for the girl to examine. "She's very curious," observed Catherine. "Too much. At home I have to keep an eye on her all the time because she gets into everything." Lily was like that too. Once, she managed to take apart the entire television just to see what was inside. Jessica smiled. "Emma did that with my old radio. When I got home, I found all the pieces scattered on the floor." "And did she manage to put it back together?" asked Catherine with a small smile on her lips. "No, but she was very proud of what she'd done. She clapped as if it were the greatest achievement in the world." Catherine watched Emma play with the vase. That's exactly how Lily would act when she managed to pull off some mischief. Just then, Margaret arrived with a snack for Emma, pieces of fruit and some cookies. "Thank you so much, Margaret," said Jessica. "I can give it to her," offered Catherine. Jessica hesitated but handed some sliced banana to Catherine. The woman knelt before Emma and offered the piece of fruit. The girl looked at Catherine, then at the food, and finally accepted it. While eating, she kept her eyes fixed on Catherine's face, as if studying her. "She's analyzing you," commented Jessica. "Lily used to do the same with new people. She'd observe them until she decided whether to trust them or not. And what was the verdict? If she liked the person, she'd offer them one of her toys. If she didn't like you, she'd simply ignore you." Emma finished eating the banana, and to everyone's surprise offered her rag doll to Catherine. "I think she approved of you," said Jessica, moved. Catherine took the doll carefully, as if it were made of crystal. "It looks just like Lily's doll." "The same model?" "Exactly the same. It was her favorite toy." Emma stretched her little hands toward Catherine, clearly wanting to be held by the woman. Catherine looked at Jessica, asking for permission. "You can pick her up," Jessica encouraged. When Catherine lifted Emma, the girl settled immediately, resting her little head on the woman's shoulder. It was as if they had known each other for years. "She's so affectionate," whispered Catherine, stroking Emma's hair. "With people she likes, yes, but it usually takes her some time to get attached to someone new." "How long?" "Weeks, sometimes months." "With you?" It was instant. Catherine fell silent, gently rocking Emma in her arms. The girl had closed her eyes and seemed completely relaxed. "Can I tell you about Lily?" Catherine asked suddenly. "Of course, if you want." "She was born premature, but she was the most beautiful baby I had ever seen. Tiny, but with incredible strength. She fought so hard to survive." Catherine paused to take a deep breath before continuing. "When she turned 2 and still hadn't spoken a single word, I started to worry. We took her to several specialists, did every test possible, but nothing explained the silence." "How did you communicate with her?" "We created our own language, gestures, looks, smiles. Lily was very expressive, so we could always understand what she wanted or how she felt." Emma had fallen completely asleep in Catherine's arms. The woman continued to rock her gently, lost in her memories. "She loved music. Whenever I put on a song, she would dance in her own way. waving her little arms and smiling. It was the most beautiful thing in the world. Emma likes music too. At home, I turn on the radio and she gets all excited, even without being able to sing along. Even then, she expresses herself with her whole body. Catherine smiled genuinely for the first time in a long while. Lily did exactly that. They stayed silent for a few minutes, just watching Emma sleep. It was a moment of peace that Catherine hadn't experienced in years. "Jessica, can I ask you a personal question?" "Of course." "Where is Emma's father?" Jessica sighed. "He left us when he found out she wasn't normal, as he put it. He thought it was my fault, and that the child would be a burden for the rest of our lives. What a terrible man." At first I was devastated, but then I realized Emma and I were better off without him. A person who can't love a special child doesn't deserve to be part of our lives. "You're right. And can you support the two of you on your own?" "It's hard, but we manage. I work here, clean other houses on weekends, and my mother helps me when she can." Catherine grew thoughtful. "Have you thought about going back to school, getting a better job?" "I have, but with Emma it's complicated. She needs special attention, and I can't afford a qualified nanny." "What if there was a way to balance both?" Jessica didn't understand where Catherine was going with this. "What do you mean?" "I don't know yet, but maybe we can find a solution." At that moment, Thomas came home from work earlier than usual. When he entered the room and saw Catherine holding Emma, he froze in the doorway. "Catherine?" he said, not believing his eyes. "Hi, Thomas," she replied calmly. "Are you two talking?" "We are. Jessica was telling me about Emma." Thomas approached carefully, as if afraid to break the spell of the moment. "How are you feeling?" he asked his wife. "Confused, sad, but also relieved in a way." "Relieved?" "To discover that I can still feel affection for a child without feeling guilty." Thomas sat beside Catherine on the sofa. "That's wonderful." "I don't know if it's wonderful, but it's a start." Emma stirred in Catherine's arms and slowly opened her eyes. When she saw Thomas, she stretched her little arms toward him, like a silent greeting. "Hi, little one," said Thomas, stroking her face. "Did you sleep well?" "She feels at home here," observed Jessica. "Perhaps because it's here that she feels loved," said Catherine softly. Catherine's words had a profound impact on everyone. It was the first time she had openly admitted that there was room in her heart for another child. "Catherine," began Thomas. "I know what you're going to say, and I'm not ready for that conversation yet," interrupted Catherine. "But I am willing to take small steps." "What kind of steps?" "Emma can come here whenever she needs to. She no longer needs to hide in the pantry." Jessica felt tears in her eyes. "Thank you very much, Mrs. Catherine. That means a lot to me." "And it means a lot to us too," added Thomas. Emma had sat on Catherine's lap and was now playing with the buttons on the woman's coat. It was such a natural domestic scene that it seemed as if it had always been that way. "May I suggest something?" said Margaret, who had appeared in the doorway of the living room. "Of course, Margaret," replied Catherine. "Why don't we all have dinner together tonight? Jessica can stay with Emma." Jessica felt embarrassed. "No, thank you. We don't want to be a bother." "It wouldn't be a bother," said Thomas quickly. "It would be pleasant," added Catherine hesitantly. "Are you sure?" asked Jessica. "I am. It's been a long time since this house has heard a child's laughter." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out, now continuing. The dinner was a milestone in the Richardson household. For the first time in 5 years, the large dining table was used for a family meal. Margaret had prepared a feast, clearly moved by the change in atmosphere in the house. Emma was in a high chair borrowed from the neighbor, between Catherine and Thomas. The girl watched everything with curiosity, especially the silverware and crystal glasses. "Careful, she likes to grab everything," warned Jessica. "It's not a problem," said Catherine, offering a small spoon for Emma to play with. "Lily also loved the dinnerware," commented Thomas. "Once she managed to stack all the forks into a wobbly tower." "And when it collapsed?" asked Jessica. She clapped her hands as if it were the best show in the world, laughed Catherine. It was the first time Jessica had seen Catherine laugh genuinely. The transformation in her face was striking. During dinner, Emma began to get fussy. She was clearly tired but didn't want to sleep. She always gets like this when she's overstimulated, explained Jessica. I'd better take her home. Wait, said Catherine. May I try something? Catherine got up and went to an old cabinet in the corner of the dining room. From there, she took out a small music box that played a soft melody. This was Lily's, she explained. It always calmed her down when she got fussy. She opened the box, and the delicate melody began to play. Emma immediately stopped fidgeting and became attentive to the sound. It worked, whispered Jessica. Lily used to say this music spoke to her in a special way, commented Catherine, her eyes moist. Emma stretched her little hands toward the music box, clearly fascinated. Catherine brought it closer, allowing the girl to gently touch the ballerina dancing inside the box. It's as if she understands, observed Thomas. Perhaps she really does, said Catherine. Sometimes children notice things that we adults can't. The music had an almost magical effect on Emma. Her restlessness completely disappeared, and she became mesmerized by the dancing ballerina. I think she liked it, commented Jessica. Lily used to be like that too. She could be crying, but just opening this little box would calm her down instantly. Special children have a different connection with music, observed Margaret. My sister had an autistic son, and he responded to music in an incredible way. Emma has always been very sensitive to sounds, agreed Jessica. Music, soft voices, even the sound of rain calms her. Catherine closed the little box when the music ended, but Emma immediately gestured for her to open it again. She wants more, laughed Catherine, opening the box again. This time Emma tried to touch the ballerina more carefully, as if she understood it was something delicate. Her expressions were of pure concentration and fascination. She's very careful for a 3-year-old, observed Thomas. Emma has always been like that. It's like she instinctively knows what's fragile or important, explained Jessica. Lily also had that sensitivity. She never broke anything because she knew exactly how to handle every object. The dinner lasted for another hour, with everyone watching Emma interact with the music box. It was a moment of peace and harmony that none of them had experienced in a long time. When it was finally time for Jessica to leave, Emma began to cry softly. It was clear she didn't want to leave that welcoming environment. She doesn't want to go, observed Catherine. It's because she feels loved here, said Jessica, trying to calm her daughter. What if, Catherine hesitated, what if you stayed overnight today? Mrs. Catherine? Jessica couldn't believe what she was hearing. We have plenty of rooms, and Emma is clearly comfortable here. Besides, tomorrow is Saturday. You don't have to work. Jessica looked at Thomas, seeking confirmation. Catherine is right. It would be our pleasure to have you here, he said. I don't know. I've never let Emma sleep away from home. Then it's time to start, encouraged Catherine. Margaret can prepare the room next to ours. That way, if Emma needs anything during the night, we'll be close by. Jessica felt this was a decisive moment. Accepting meant taking an important step in the relationship with this family. All right, she said finally, but if she cries too much during the night, we'll leave. Agreed, smiled Catherine. Margaret quickly prepared the guest room, putting on clean sheets and arranging a special little corner for Emma to sleep. Jessica didn't have pajamas, but Catherine lent her a pair of her own. Thank you for all this, said Jessica, as they were getting ready for bed. I should be thanking you, replied Catherine. It's been a long time since I've felt alive. Emma has that effect on people. She brings light to dark places. Like Lily used to do. Emma was playing in bed with her little doll, completely adapted to the new environment. It was as if she had always lived there. Can I tell you a secret? Said Catherine, sitting on the edge of the bed. Of course. Ever since Lily passed, I haven't been able to enter her room. Everything is exactly as she left it, but I just couldn't open the door. And now? Today, for the first time, I managed to walk down the hallway without feeling that terrible pain in my chest. Jessica held Catherine's hand. Lily would be happy to know you're finding the strength to move forward. Do you think so? I'm sure of it. No mother wants to see her child suffering, not even after they're gone. Catherine wiped away a tear. Thank you for saying that. Emma had settled down with her doll and seemed ready to sleep. Catherine leaned over and gave the little girl a kiss on the forehead. Good night, little one. To everyone's surprise, Emma pulled Catherine closer and gave her a little kiss on the cheek. It was a spontaneous gesture of affection that deeply touched the woman's heart. She's adopted you, whispered Jessica. And I think I've adopted her too, replied Catherine, her voice choked with emotion. The evening passed peacefully. Emma slept like an angel, and for the first time in months, she didn't wake up in the middle of the night. It was as if she knew she was in a safe place full of love. The next morning, Jessica woke up to the smell of coffee and fresh bread. When she went down to the kitchen, she found a scene that moved her. Catherine was making pancakes while Thomas held Emma, who watched everything with great interest. Good morning, Jessica greeted. Good morning, did you sleep well? Catherine asked cheerfully. Very well, and you? Better than in years, Thomas replied. Emma stretched her little arms out to Jessica, but then went back to Thomas as if she wanted to stay with him a little longer. She woke up about 20 minutes ago and hasn't cried once, Catherine informed. She was just observing everything around her, as if she were at home. That's very unusual for her. Usually, when she sleeps in a strange place, she gets restless. Maybe it's not a strange place to her, Thomas suggested. Breakfast was even more special than the previous night's dinner. Catherine had prepared a carefully set table with cut fruits, various breads, and even a small vase with flowers from the garden. Everything looks beautiful, Jessica complimented. It's been a long time since I prepared a special breakfast. I forgot how good it felt, Catherine admitted. Emma was fascinated by the flowers on the table. She tried to touch each petal carefully, as if studying every detail. Lily also loved flowers, Catherine commented. She would spend hours in the garden observing each one. Emma does the same thing in the park near our home. She gets mesmerized by any flower she sees. It's a special connection these children have with nature, Thomas observed. During breakfast, Catherine made a proposal that would change everything. Jessica, I've been thinking overnight about our conversation yesterday. About what? About you going back to school. I have an idea. Jessica paid close attention. What if you came to work here full-time, living here with us? Mrs. Catherine. Jessica was speechless. Think about it. You'd have a comfortable room for you and Emma. Wouldn't need to worry about rent or food and could study at night. Thomas and I would take care of Emma when you were at college. But I can't accept this. It's too much. It's not too much, Thomas interjected. It's fair. Emma brought life back to this house. You've made us remember how good it is to have a family. Besides, Catherine added, Emma could have everything that Lily had. The best doctors, specialized therapies, everything she needs to develop. Jessica felt tears streaming down her face. It was more than she had ever dreamed of for her and Emma. Are you sure about this? Absolutely, said Catherine, but on one condition. What? That you let us be part of Emma's life, not as employers, but as family. The word family echoed in the kitchen like a promise of a better future. Jessica looked at Emma, who was happily in Thomas's arms, and at Catherine, who watched her with genuine affection. Yes, Jessica finally said. Yes, we accept. The following days were spent organizing and making changes. Jessica brought her few belongings from her mother's house, who was moved to hear about her daughter's new opportunity. I always knew you were special, said Mrs. Brown, hugging Emma. Now you'll have the chance you deserve. The room Catherine had chosen for them was perfect, spacious, with a beautiful view of the garden and a private bathroom. Margaret helped decorate, putting some toys and children's books in place so Emma would feel at home. It looks like a princess's room, commented Jessica. Emma deserves to be treated like a princess, replied Catherine. The adaptation was surprisingly easy. Emma behaved as if she had always lived there, exploring every corner of the house with curiosity, but without making a mess. The relationship between Catherine and the girl developed quickly. Catherine had discovered that Emma loved picture books and began reading to her every night before bed. She pays attention to every word, even though she can't respond, Catherine observed to Jessica. Did Lily also like stories? She adored them. I used to make up stories about princesses who talked to animals through gestures and smiles. How beautiful. Emma would be enchanted by that kind of story. Catherine smiled. Maybe I can tell her some. Thomas, in turn, had become Emma's favorite playmate. He came home from work eager to see her and always brought some small gift, flowers from the roadside, colorful pebbles, or simple little toys. You're spoiling her, Jessica teased. And I intend to keep spoiling her, laughed Thomas. It's been a long time since I had a reason to smile when I came home. The first week passed like a dream. Jessica had enrolled in a night business administration course. Catherine cared for Emma with maternal dedication, and Thomas rediscovered the joy of having a child in the house. But not everything was perfect. At the end of the first week, Catherine received an unexpected visit, her sister Jennifer. Jennifer was 2 years younger than Catherine, but much more conservative. When she saw Emma playing in the living room, she was shocked. "Catherine, what is this?" she asked in an accusatory tone. "This is Emma, the daughter of Jessica, our new employee." "A new employee who lives here?" "Exactly." Jennifer pulled Catherine aside. "Have you lost your mind? How can you bring a child into this house after everything that happened?" "Jennifer, it's none of your business." "Of course it is. You're my sister, and I can't let you do something this crazy." "What's so crazy? Taking care of a child who needs help?" "You're trying to replace Lily with this girl. That's sick, Catherine." Jennifer's words hurt deeply. Catherine had fought against those same thoughts and believed she had overcome the guilt. "I'm not replacing anyone," Catherine said firmly. "Of course you are. You dressed her in Lily's clothes, let her play with your daughter's toys, and now you want her to live here? Lily's clothes were stored away unused. It's better that a child benefits from them. And the toys? You swore no one else would ever touch them." Catherine fell silent. It was true that she had let Emma play with some of Lily's toys, but she saw no problem with it. "Jennifer, you don't understand." "I do understand. You're having a breakdown and need professional help, not a child to fill the void." At that moment, Emma approached the two women. She sensed the tension in the air and wanted to offer comfort, as she always did. "See," said Jennifer. "Even she feels there's something wrong here." Emma held out her little doll to Catherine, as she always did when someone was sad. It was her way of saying she cared. "She's trying to comfort me," Catherine explained to her sister. "That's unconscious emotional manipulation. Special needs children do that to get attention." "How can you say such a thing?" Catherine was outraged. "Because I've seen it before. Remember our cousin, Rebecca? She also adopted a special needs child after she lost her son, and it was a disaster." Catherine picked Emma up, instinctively protecting her from Jennifer's harsh words. "Emma is not an experiment or therapy. She is a child who needs love, and we have love to give. And when you get tired of her? When will you realize she'll never speak, never be normal? Will you return her like a broken toy?" "Enough!" shouted Catherine. "I won't allow you to speak about Emma that way in my home." Emma started crying, frightened by the yelling. Catherine tried to calm her, rocking her gently. "See, you're already negatively affecting the child," pointed out Jennifer. At that moment, Jessica arrived from college and found the tense situation. "What's happening?" she asked, seeing Emma crying. "This is Jessica, Emma's mother," introduced Catherine. "Jessica, this is my sister Jennifer." Jessica immediately felt Jennifer's hostility. "Pleasure to meet you." "I bet it is," said Jennifer sarcastically. "Must be very happy to have found a wealthy family to support you and your daughter." "Jennifer," Catherine was furious. Jessica flushed with anger but tried to maintain composure. "Ma'am, I don't know what led you to that conclusion, but I can assure you my daughter and I are not opportunists. Of course not. Pure coincidence that a cleaning woman managed to convince a wealthy family to adopt you both. Nobody adopted us. We live here because Catherine and Thomas invited us, and I work honestly to deserve this privilege." "Work doing what? Manipulating a grieving woman's feelings?" Jessica was about to respond harshly when Thomas arrived home. "What's going on here? Why is Emma crying?" he asked, removing his suit jacket. "Thomas, glad you're here," said Jennifer. "I need to speak with you about this absurd situation." "What situation?" He took Emma from Catherine's arms, and the girl immediately calmed down. "About you and Catherine playing house with a child that isn't yours." Thomas grew serious. "Jennifer, I suggest you choose your words more carefully." "Or what? You'll throw me out of my own sister's house? If necessary to protect Emma and Jessica from your disrespectful comments, yes." Jennifer was shocked. She'd never seen Thomas so determined. "You've truly lost your minds," she said, grabbing her purse. "But when this fantasy ends and you fall flat on your faces, don't come crying on my shoulder." "We won't cry," said Catherine firmly, "because it's not a fantasy, it's a family." Jennifer slammed the door on her way out, leaving everyone in silence. "I'm sorry about that," Catherine told Jessica. "Jennifer has always been bitter, but I didn't expect such cruelty." "Don't worry. I've heard worse things," replied Jessica, though clearly shaken. Emma had stopped crying and now watched everyone with concern. Thomas took her to the garden to distract her while Catherine and Jessica talked. "Jessica, you don't believe what she said, do you?" asked Catherine. "About me taking advantage?" "No, but some things she said made me think." "About what?" "About Lily's clothes and toys. Maybe I was insensitive letting Emma use those things." Catherine shook her head vigorously. "You weren't insensitive. Lily would be happy knowing her things are bringing joy to another child." "Are you sure?" "Absolutely. My daughter had a generous heart. She always shared everything she had." Jessica felt relieved but still had a concern in her heart. "Catherine, can I ask you a difficult question?" "Of course." "Are you sure you're doing this for the right reasons?" "I'm not judging. I just want to understand." Catherine grew thoughtful for a moment. "It's a fair question. At first, maybe there was some of what Jennifer said. Emma reminded me of Lily, and that gave me comfort. And now? Now I love Emma for who she is, not who she reminds me of. She has her own personality, her own charms, her own way of touching people's hearts." Jessica felt Catherine was being sincere. "Thank you for being honest." "And what about you, Jessica? Aren't you afraid that Emma might get too attached to us and get hurt if something goes wrong?" "I am, yes. But I also see how she's blossomed since she's been here. She's happier, more curious, more connected with the world." "Then let's continue. An unconventional family, but a real family." "Agreed." That night, after Emma fell asleep, Catherine made an important decision. She went to Lily's room, which had been closed for 5 years, and opened the door. The room was exactly as Lily had left it. Toys scattered, picture books on the bed, tiny clothes in the wardrobe. Catherine sat on the little bed, and for the first time in years, was able to be there without feeling unbearable pain. "Hi, my love," she whispered. "Mommy brought a special little friend for you to meet." She picked up a doll that was on the dresser, a different doll from the one Emma used, but just as cherished. "This one is for Emma. I think you two would have gotten along very well." Catherine stayed in the room for almost an hour, organizing a few things and choosing other toys that Emma might like. When she left, she carried a box with special treasures, books, educational toys, and the new doll. The next day, Catherine gave the gifts to Emma. The little girl was overjoyed, especially with the new doll, which she hugged immediately. "This was Lily's," explained Catherine. "Now it's yours." Emma looked at Catherine with an expression that seemed to say, "Thank you." Then she did something surprising. She took her old doll and offered it to Catherine. "She wants to share with you," interpreted Jessica, moved. Catherine accepted Emma's doll and hugged it. "Thank you, little one. I'll take good care of it." It was a moment of symbolic exchange, of mutual acceptance and shared love. The following weeks brought a pleasant and productive routine. Jessica was excelling in college, Emma continued to thrive in a loving environment, and Catherine and Thomas rediscovered the joy of being caregivers. But life had one more surprise in store for them. During one of Emma's routine checkups with a new pediatrician that Catherine had found, Dr. Miller made an important observation. Emma is responding very well to the stimulating environment she's in now, he said. Her motor and cognitive development has improved significantly. And what about her speech? Asked Jessica. It's interesting, she's making more attempts at vocalization. Small sounds, but it's progress. Does that mean she might start talking? Helena wanted to know. It's possible. Sometimes, the speech block in children like Emma is more emotional than physical. A loving and safe environment might be the catalyst she needs. Everyone felt hopeful at the news. In the following weeks, they paid even closer attention to the sounds Emma made. It was Catherine who heard it first. She was reading a story to Emma before bed when the little girl made a clear sound. Ma. Jessica, Thomas, come quick, shouted Catherine. The two ran to the room. What happened? Asked Thomas. She talked. Emma said, Ma, are you sure? Jessica could hardly believe it. I am. Emma, say it again. Ma. Emma looked at all the anxious faces around the bed and to everyone's delight repeated, Ma. Oh my God. Jessica began to cry. She talked. She really talked. It was the moment Jessica had dreamed of since her daughter's birth, and it was happening right there, surrounded by people who loved Emma like family. In the days that followed, Emma began to make more attempts at speech. Simple words like Pa for Daddy, referring to Thomas, Na for Catherine, and Mo for more when she wanted to repeat a game. It's as if she's been storing up the words and now feels safe enough to use them, observed Dr. Miller at a follow-up appointment. What does this mean for her future? Asked Thomas. With patience and continuous encouragement, she can develop functional speech. We don't know to what extent, but the prognosis is much better than we imagined. The family was overjoyed. Catherine began working with Emma every day, using techniques she researched and methods recommended by the doctor. But the real surprise came 3 months later. Emma was playing in the garden with Thomas when a butterfly landed on her hand. The girl was ecstatic, watching the delicate insect. Suddenly, she looked at Thomas and said clearly, Pret-tai. What? Thomas nearly fell off his chair. Pret-tai, repeated Emma, pointing to the butterfly. Catherine! Jessica! Shouted Thomas. Come here now. The two women ran to the garden. What happened? They asked together. She said, Pretty. A complete word. It can't be, whispered Jessica. Emma, show Mommy the butterfly, asked Thomas. Emma pointed to the butterfly, which was still on her hand, and said, Pretty momamai. Jessica collapsed in tears. Catherine hugged her, also crying with emotion. She said, Mommy, sobbed Jessica. For the first time, she called me Mommy. It was a moment of pure magic. The girl who had spent 3 years in silence was now communicating her thoughts and feelings, but Emma wasn't finished. She looked at Catherine and said, my Catherine. She has 2 mommies, interpreted Thomas, his voice choked. Catherine was speechless. Being called Mommy by Emma was something she hadn't even dared to dream of. And Daddy? Where's Daddy? Joked Thomas. Emma smiled and said, Daddai Thomas. The family hugged there in the garden, celebrating not only the miracle of Emma's speech, but also the miracle of the love that had united them all. In the following months, the story of the Richardson-Parker family, as they came to be called, spread through the medical and social community of New York City. Dr. Miller wrote an article about the case, highlighting how a loving and stable environment had catalyzed the development of a child with special needs. Catherine founded a small organization to help other families with children who had communication difficulties. Jessica finished her college studies with honors and became the administrator of the organization. Thomas reduced his workload to spend more time with the family, discovering that his true fulfillment came from being a father, not from accumulating wealth. And Emma? Emma continued to progress day after day. By age 5, she was already forming complete sentences and demonstrating brilliant intelligence. More importantly, she grew up in an environment where she knew she was unconditionally loved by 3 dedicated adults. During an interview for a local newspaper about her organization, Catherine was asked how she would define her non-traditional family. "Family isn't defined by blood or legal documents," she answered. "It's defined by love, commitment, and the willingness to put each other's well-being above all else." Emma taught us that love has no limits and that miracles happen when we open our hearts. Jessica, sitting beside her, added, "When I brought Emma to work that day, I was desperate and had no options. I never imagined I was bringing her home." "To our home," corrected Catherine, smiling. "To our home?" agreed Jessica. Across the room, Emma was playing with her dolls, telling a story aloud to them. It was a story about a girl who found a special family and how everyone learned to speak the language of love. Thomas watched the scene from the sofa, his heart overflowing with gratitude. He had lost a daughter but gained another. He had nearly lost his wife to grief, but won her back through joy. And he had found purpose in being the father that Emma needed. The house that was once a mausoleum of sad memories now echoed with laughter, conversations, and the sounds of a happy family. Margaret, now nearly 70, stayed with them, taking on the role of a loving grandmother to Emma. On nights when Jessica had classes or Catherine was busy with the organization, it was Margaret who told stories and sang lullabies. "Mrs. Margaret," Emma said one night before bed, "why did you never have children?" "Because God knew I would need to save all my love to take care of you," the housekeeper replied, kissing the girl's forehead. 2 years after Emma's first word, the family received an unexpected visitor. Jennifer was at the door with a sheepish expression. "Hi, Catherine," she said hesitantly. "Jennifer, what are you doing here?" "I came to apologize and to get to know Emma better, if you'll allow me." Catherine was surprised but invited her sister inside. "What changed?" Catherine asked when they sat down in the living room. "My world fell apart," Jennifer confessed. "My husband left me, I lost my job, and I found myself completely alone. That's when I understood what you found here." "What did I find?" "A real family. People who care for each other not out of obligation but by choice." At that moment, Emma ran into the living room, chasing a ball. "Hi," she said to Jennifer, with the naturalness of a 5-year-old. "Hi, Emma," Jennifer replied nervously. "Do you remember me?" Emma shook her head, but not rudely. "Are you the sad aunt?" The child's direct question caught Jennifer off guard. "I am, but I'm trying not to be sad anymore." "Do you want to play with me?" "Playing makes you less sad," Emma offered, holding out the ball. Jennifer looked at Catherine, who nodded encouragingly. "I'd love to play with you," Jennifer said, accepting the ball. And so another member joined the non-traditional Richardson-Parker family. Jennifer didn't come to live with them, but she became a present and caring aunt, finding in her niece, by affinity, a reason to rebuild her own life. On Emma's 6th birthday, the party was held in the mansion's garden. Present were Dr. Miller and his family, some families from Catherine's organization, neighbors who had become friends, and even Mrs. Brown, who had moved to a smaller house closer to the family. Emma, now a talkative and lively girl, blew out the candles and made a wish. "What did you wish for?" asked Jessica. "That our family always stays together," Emma replied without hesitation. "Why?" Thomas wanted to know. "Because before you, I didn't know I had a voice. Now I know I can speak, sing, laugh, and tell stories. You taught me that I have many words inside me." Catherine wiped away a tear. "And you taught us that love is the most important language of all." The party continued late into the night, with music, dancing, and many stories. Emma was at the center of it all, shining like the star she had always been, but now she had a stage where she could shine. When everyone had left and the house was quiet, the family gathered in the living room for a moment of gratitude, a tradition they had created. "What are we grateful for today?" Thomas asked, as he always did. "For finding love where I least expected it," said Catherine. "For having a family that accepts me as I am," said Jessica. "For learning that family is chosen by the heart," said Margaret. "For no longer being alone and sad," said Jennifer. "And you, Emma?" asked Thomas. The girl thought for a moment and then said, "I'm grateful that you taught me that even silence can be broken with love." End of story. Now tell us, what did you think of this story of overcoming and love? Write in the comments which part moved you the most, and if you know any special family like this one. Your opinion is very important to us. Leave that clever like and subscribe to the channel for more heartwarming stories. Thank you for always being here with us.